Welcome to MineTalksAI Mining Insight, powered by AI. Today we're going deep on something you really need to know about if you're following Indonesian nickel. It's this proposal from the government to raise royalties on nickel.
Mm.
We've been digging into some recent news articles about it, mostly from March and April of this year, 2025.
Yeah.
Detailing the plan itself and then also how the industry is reacting to it. So what we want to do in this deep dive is first just break down exactly what these proposed changes to royalties would be,
Right.
then kind of look at, what's the Indonesian government thinking here? Why are they doing this? And then really importantly, highlight the concerns that are coming from, the mining associations and the industry players.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a big deal. This isn't just like a small tweak. This could really change how the Indonesian government gets its cut from all this nickel they've got. And the effects are going to be felt up and down the whole supply chain.
Mm.
So yeah, let's start with the nuts and bolts. What are they actually proposing here?
Okay, so right now the royalty rate for nickel ore in Indonesia is just a flat 10%.
Right.
Pretty straightforward, but what the government is proposing is to switch to a progressive royalty system,
Okay.
which basically means that the rate isn't fixed anymore. It goes up and down based on this government set benchmark price for nickel. It's called the HMA.
The HMA, right? The Harga Mineral
Yeah, yeah,
one.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So how would this new progressive structure work?
So there's a few different levels to it. If the HMA for nickel is, less than $18,000 per ton, then the royalty would be 14%. If it's between $18,000 and $21,000 per ton, then it goes up to 15%. $21,000 to $24,000 a ton, it's 16%. And then $24,000 to $31,000, it jumps up to 18%. And then if the HMA is like $31,000 a ton or more, then we're talking 19% royalty.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can see how that could get
Yeah.
way more expensive than the current 10%.
Yeah, huge difference. And it's not just nickel ore, right?
No, not at all.
This is for like ferronickel and nickel pig iron too.
Right. Processed nickel products.
Yeah.
NPI,
Yeah, exactly. NPI.
Yeah. They're also looking at changing those royalties. The proposal is somewhere between 5% and 7% based on the HMA. And just for context, right now it's a fixed 2% for ferronickel and 5% for NPI.
Okay, so again, moving it up.
Yeah, definitely an upward trend there.
And nickel matte too, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Can't forget nickel matte. They're proposing 4.5% to 6.5% for that one, also based on the HMA. Before it was, between 2% and 3%. So it's pretty clear the government's trying to, get a bigger piece of the pie from all this Indonesian nickel.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to be clear for everybody, all these changes would be part of a revision to an existing law.
Right.
It's Government Regulation number 26 of 2022.
Yeah, it's not like a totally new thing, just tweaking what's already there.
Right, right. So the question is, why are they doing this? What's the motivation?
Well, the main reason it seems like is that they need more money. The government, I mean. Our sources are saying that tax revenue was down over 30% in the first 2 months of 2025.
Wow, that's a big hole in the budget.
Yeah, it is.
They're trying to make up for it with higher mining royalties.
That's the idea. They figure they can boost non-tax revenue that way.
Right. And that non-tax revenue is pretty important, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, during those first 2 months of 2025, non-tax revenue was a full quarter of the state's income.
Wow. So it makes sense that they'd look at mining royalties.
Yeah, it's a direct way for them to, address this shortfall.
So basically, the government needs cash, and they see commodity prices as a way to get it.
Yeah. And, to be fair, commodity prices have been pretty high until recently. So they probably figured this was a good time to, get a bigger share.
Right. And that's their argument, isn't it?
Yeah, they're saying that, when commodity prices are up, mining companies can afford to pay more in royalties.
Mm-hmm.
And the country should benefit from that.
Makes sense on the surface, but the industry is pushing back pretty hard.
Oh, yeah, big time. And they've got some good points, especially now that the market's changing.
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting. Because you've got the government's goals and then the reality of what's happening in the industry.
Exactly.
And it doesn't always line up. And we're seeing that with all the concerns being raised by the mining groups.
Mm-hmm. The APNI FIAN,
Mm-hmm.
they're all saying, whoa, hold on a second. This isn't as simple as it seems.
Yeah, and their concerns are pretty broad.
Oh, yeah, they're not just complaining about the higher costs. They're saying, look, we're already dealing with all these other problems. This is just going to make things worse.
Right. So what are some of the specific things they're bringing up?
Well, for one thing, they're talking about the biodiesel program. That's costing them a lot of money,
Yeah, that mandatory biodiesel program?
right? It's not cheap. And then there's that new rule about keeping export earnings in the country for a year. That's tying up a ton of their cash. Plus, the VAT on mining equipment went up recently, so it's getting more expensive to invest in new equipment.
Right, so those are all costs that the miners are already facing.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got the fact that commodity prices are going down,
Yeah.
especially nickel.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's at like multi-year lows right now.
Hmm.
So the government's whole argument about, prices being high, it just doesn't hold water anymore.
Yeah, it's like the policy is out of sync with the market.
Exactly.
Ah.
They're talking about raising costs when revenues are already going down.
And it's not just the biodiesel, right?
No, there's more. Minimum wage is going up. That VAT on equipment is still there. It's all squeezing their profits.
And this brings up the whole issue of global competitiveness.
Oh, yeah. Huge issue. The mining associations are saying, look, other nickel-producing countries, like the Philippines,
Yeah.
Australia, Brazil,
Hmm.
they've got much lower royalty rates.
So if Indonesian nickel gets more expensive.
Yeah, because of the higher royalties. It's going to be less attractive on the global market.
Right. Buyers are going to start looking elsewhere. And Indonesia could lose market share. And it's not just about the ore either.
Right, the downstream industry is worried too.
Yeah.
All those nickel processing plants that Indonesia's been trying to build up,
Yeah.
they could be affected too.
Yeah, and then you've got the global minimum tax coming in.
Oh yeah, that's another wrinkle. That could end tax holidays for processors. So now they're facing higher taxes and higher input costs. It's a tough situation.
Yeah, a real double whammy. And some of the mining associations are even saying that companies might have to shut down.
Yeah, or at least cut back production, which would be ironic, wouldn't it? Because then the government would actually lose revenue.
Yeah, the exact opposite of what they're trying to do. And Fenai is making the argument that the royalty increase isn't even necessary.
Right, they're saying the current system is already working. They've got data showing that non-tax revenue from mining has been exceeding targets for years. They're talking about P&BP realization rates over 100% from 2020 to 2024.
So their point is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
And they're also bringing up the fact that the progressive rates don't account for falling nickel prices.
Yeah, it's a system designed for a different market.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the impact on all those smelter projects.
Yeah.
Huge investments. And now they're facing higher costs for their raw materials.
Right. It could really hurt their profitability.
Yeah, and discourage future investment. Plus, there's the risk of job losses, both in mining and processing, if companies have to scale back.
Yeah, it's a whole domino effect. So APNI has actually given the government some specific requests.
Yeah, they're asking them to halt the royalty hike, adjust the rates based on actual commodity prices, and give tax breaks to companies that are investing in downstream processing.
Okay, so they're not just complaining, they're offering solutions.
Right. They're also asking for a review of the whole tax system to make sure there's no overlap. And they want them to change how they calculate the nickel benchmark price.
Okay, so pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, they've really thought this through. And even some individual companies are speaking out, like Nickel Industries Limited. They said publicly that these changes could mean they have to pay more royalties on their ore sales, but they also pointed out that their processing operations wouldn't be directly affected.
Right.
Because they use their own ore.
Okay, so it's not going to hit everyone the same way.
Right, it depends on your business model.
So what's the latest on all this? Is it a done deal? Are these royalties going up?
Well, not so fast. Reports from early April are saying that the official announcement has been delayed.
Really?
Yeah, apparently it has something to do with the U.S. tariffs on nickel. And the government might be rethinking the whole thing.
Wow, so more uncertainty.
Yeah, definitely. And this is interesting. The market was already expecting the royalty increase before Ramadan, and that had pushed up premiums. But now with the delay and nickel prices going down because of the tariffs, those premiums are likely to fall.
Okay, so it's all connected.
Yeah, it's a complex situation. And there's this mismatch between the April HMA price, which was set before the prices dropped, and the current market reality. That could put even more pressure on premiums.
And the industry was already planning to renegotiate the April premium?
Yeah, they were going to start talking about it around April 8th.
So to recap, we've got the government needing money and trying to get it from nickel royalties, but the industry saying, whoa, this is going to hurt us, and it might not even work. And now the whole thing is on hold because of the U.S. tariffs.
It's a mess.
Yeah, it's a lot to keep track of. But that's why we're here, right?
That's right.
To help you make sense of it all. So thanks for tuning into MineTalksAI. Don't forget to subscribe and stay sharp because smart mining starts with smart insights.